I used to think the worst thing about living alone was the silence. Then I moved somewhere the silence breathed back. I moved into the duplex on Garfield Street because it was $700 a month and I was broke. That's it. That's the whole reason. I'd been crashing on my friend Leah's couch for 2 months after the layoff, applying to retail jobs during the day and lying awake at night listening to her and her boyfriend argue through the bedroom door. When I saw the listing, 700, duplex, quiet street, I didn't even tour it. I just called. The place wasn't nice. The carpet was the color of oatmeal and just as old. The kitchen had one of those ceilings with the popcorn texture that always looks like it's about to fall on you. The bathroom fan didn't work. But $700 a month in this city? You don't ask questions. You sign the lease. The landlord, this guy named Pruitt, who smelled like menthol and looked like he hadn't slept since 2004, walked me through both sides. My unit was 4A, the left half. 4B was the right half, separated by a shared wall that ran the full length of the building. He told me the tenant in 4B had been there for 23 years. Mrs. Calloway, he said, you'll never hear a peep from her. Quietest tenant I've ever had. He was right. For the first week, I didn't hear anything. Then I started hearing everything. It was subtle at first. Background stuff. The old house symphony. Pipes ticking, wood settling, the hum of the furnace kicking on. And layered underneath all of that, the faint sounds of someone living on the other side of the wall. Footsteps, a chair sliding, water running, cabinet doors. Normal neighbor sounds. I didn't think about it. But by week 2, I started noticing a pattern. When I got up in the morning and walked to the kitchen, I'd hear her walk to hers. When I sat on the couch, I'd hear a creak from her side, like she'd sat down too. When I turned off the lights and went to bed, her side would go quiet within a minute. Not gradually, like a switch. I told myself it was coincidence. We were on the same schedule. People who live alone develop routines, right? Maybe we both woke up around 7. Maybe we both ate dinner at 6. It happens. But one night, a Thursday, around 11 p.m., I couldn't sleep. I got up and went to the kitchen for water. I stood at the sink, filling a glass, not making much noise. Within 30 seconds, I heard footsteps from her side. Slow, deliberate, moving toward her kitchen. Then, the sound of water running. I stood there holding my glass. The water on her side ran for exactly as long as mine had. Then it stopped. Then footsteps, back toward the living room. I set my glass down very quietly and walked back to the couch. I sat down. From the other side of the wall, a creak, exactly like someone sitting. My skin went cold. Not because it was scary, not yet. Because it was precise. The timing wasn't close. It was exact. I tested it. I know how that sounds, like I was looking for trouble. But when something doesn't make sense, my brain won't let it go. I've always been like that, in school, at work, with people. If something's off, I pick at it until I find the seam. Leah used to say I'd argue with a parking meter. I need to understand. The next night, Friday, I set an alarm for 3:15 a.m., deep middle of the night. No reason for anyone to be awake. The alarm went off. I turned it off fast. One beep, barely audible. I lay in bed and listened. Nothing for about 20 seconds. Then, from the other side of the wall, a mattress spring. The soft sound of someone shifting their weight. Then feet on the floor. She was awake. At 3:15 a.m., 20 seconds after me. I sat up in bed. My heart was going fast. I walked to the shared wall and pressed my ear against it. I could hear her breathing, slow and steady, like she'd been doing this for a long time and it didn't cost her any effort. She was standing on the other side. I was sure of it. Standing right where I was standing, inches away through drywall and insulation. Then I heard her exhale, long, slow, and I swear my lungs emptied at the same time. Not because I chose to breathe out, because my body did it on its own, like it was responding to a cue I couldn't hear. I pulled away from the wall, went back to bed, didn't sleep. The next day, I knocked on her door. Saturday afternoon. I'd rehearsed what I'd say. Keep it casual, don't be the weird neighbor. Mrs. Calloway opened the door. She was maybe mid-60s, short, gray hair pulled back in a loose bun. She wore a cardigan that looked like it had been washed 1,000 times. Her face was pleasant, soft features, polite smile. But her eyes were wrong. Not crazy, not empty, just still. Like water that hasn't moved in a long time. "Hi, Maya from next door. Sorry to bother you." "Of course. How are you settling in?" "Good, yeah. I just wanted to ask, have you been hearing sounds from my side, through the wall?" She tilted her head slightly. "Old house, thin walls. We're bound to hear each other now and then." "Right. It's just, the timing is kind of funny. It's like we're on the exact same schedule." She smiled. It was a warm smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Same wavelength, I guess," she said. "It happens." She closed the door, not rudely, just finished. Like the conversation had reached its natural end and there was nothing else to say. I went back to my side. I sat on the couch. From the other side of the wall, I heard her sit too. 2 weeks passed. I tried to ignore it. I turned up the TV. I wore headphones. I kept telling myself it was an old building and weird acoustics, and I was making something out of nothing. But the synchronization was getting tighter. I'd reach for my phone and hear her pick something up. I'd yawn and hear a faint exhale from her side. One morning, I sneezed in the kitchen, and from the other side of the wall, I heard a sneeze so quiet it sounded like a whisper. The exact same rhythm. 2 pulses and a breath. I called Pruitt, told him I thought there might be mice in the walls. He said he'd send someone out next week. I asked if there was anything I could do in the meantime. He said, "Don't leave food out." He hung up. Next week. Great. That night, I moved my bookshelf. It was a cheap thing from IKEA, pressed against the shared wall in the living room. I moved it because I wanted to check the wall. I don't know, for cracks, for holes, for something that would explain the acoustics. The wall behind the bookshelf was old plaster, painted over maybe 10 times. And just below eye level, almost invisible under the layers of paint, I found a hole. Not a crack, a hole. Round, clean, maybe 3 millimeters across. Drilled. I got a flashlight. I checked the rest of the wall. It took me an hour, moving furniture, pulling away baseboards, checking behind the bathroom mirror. I found 12. 12 holes drilled through the shared wall, each one positioned with care. One aimed at the kitchen counter, one at the couch, one at the foot of my bed. One pointed directly at the shower stall. 12 precise, deliberate sightlines covering every part of my apartment. My hands were shaking. I remember because I tried to hold the flashlight steady and couldn't. I pressed my eye to one of the holes, the one near the kitchen, and looked through. I should have seen Mrs. Calloway's apartment, her kitchen, her furniture, her life. I couldn't see anything. The hole just led to darkness, like something was blocking the other end. I didn't leave that night. I should have. I know that now. But here's the thing, and this is the part I keep coming back to, the part that scares me more than everything else. I packed a bag. I actually packed it. Clothes, phone charger, wallet. I set it by the door. I put my shoes on. I texted Leah, "Can I crash tonight? Something's wrong with my apartment." She sent back a thumbs up. I had somewhere to go. I had my keys in my hand. And then I sat down on the edge of my bed, just for a second, just to catch my breath. The apartment was quiet, really quiet. No sounds from her side, no creaking, no footsteps, just the soft hum of the building, the pipes, the furnace, the walls settling into their nighttime temperature. And underneath that, something I couldn't quite hear. Not a sound, a rhythm, like the building had a pulse, and I was sitting inside its chest. I thought I should go. I thought it clearly. I could feel the thought in my head, sharp and loud. But my legs didn't stand up. My hand didn't reach for the bag. It was like the signal was being sent, but something between my brain and my body was absorbing it, softening it, turning the urgency into something that felt more like a suggestion. I sat there for what I thought was 5 minutes. I was arguing with myself. Get up, Maya, get up. This isn't normal. Your legs work. Just stand. And then the argument got quieter. And then it wasn't an argument anymore. It was just a thought. And then the thought felt very far away, like someone calling from another room. I woke up the next morning, in my bed, fully clothed, bag still by the door, phone on the nightstand. Leah had texted at midnight. "You coming or what?" I never replied. I didn't remember lying down. That night, I plugged the holes. Hardware store putty, gray, quick setting, the kind you use for nail holes when you move out. I pressed it into each one carefully, flush with the plaster. 12 holes, 12 plugs. It took 20 minutes. When I was done, the wall looked solid, sealed. I sat on the couch and waited. For about an hour, nothing. The quietest the apartment had been since I moved in. No sounds from her side. No creaks, no footsteps, no water. Just the hum of the fridge and the tick of the heating pipes. Then I heard it. Tapping. Not from Mrs. Calloway's side. Not from the exterior wall. From inside the shared wall, between my plaster and hers. In the cavity where there should be nothing but insulation and studs and dark air. Tap, 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 slow, patient, like a finger testing the surface of something. I stood up. I walked to the wall. The tapping stopped. I looked at the hole nearest to me, the one I'd plugged 20 minutes ago. The putty was gone. Not fallen out, not crumbled, pushed through. The plug was sitting on my floor, still wet on one side, the side that had been facing in. Something inside the wall had pressed it out. I called the police. I actually did it. Dialed the non-emergency line, waited 8 minutes on hold, told the dispatcher there was evidence of surveillance in my apartment, holes drilled through the shared wall. She asked if I was in immediate danger. I said I didn't know. She said they'd send someone out when a unit was available. That was at 11 p.m. Nobody came. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the wall, waiting for sirens that never arrived. By midnight, the tapping had started again. Slower now. Almost playful. I got the flashlight. I knelt in front of the open hole, the one near the bookshelf about 3 feet off the floor. I aimed the beam inside. The cavity was narrow, maybe 4 inches between my wall and hers. I could see the wooden studs, the pink insulation, a cobweb. The flashlight beam traveled about 2 feet before it hit something that wasn't wall. It was skin, pale, mottled, close enough that I could see the pores, pressed against the inside of the wall, like a face against a window. I jerked back so fast I dropped the flashlight. It hit the floor and rolled, the beam spinning across the ceiling. From inside the wall, I heard breathing. Not the mechanical rhythm of pipes. Breathing. Wet. Slow. Patient. And warm. The air coming through the hole was warm, body temperature warm, like someone had pressed their mouth to the other side and was exhaling directly at me. I scrambled backward across the floor. My back hit the opposite wall. I sat there staring at the hole, and I could see, just barely, in the light from the kitchen, the faint fog of breath pulsing out of it. In, out. In, out. And my chest was moving with it. Not because I was choosing to breathe in rhythm, because my lungs were doing it on their own. In when it breathed in, out when it breathed out. Like something had reached inside me and taken hold of the bellows. I tried to break it. I held my breath, clamped my mouth shut, pinched my nose, counted. 5 seconds, 10, 15. My lungs were burning, but I held on, because if I could just breathe on my own schedule, out of sync, I'd prove I was still in control. At 20 seconds, the breathing from the wall stopped too. It was holding its breath with me. The silence was absolute. No hum, no ticking. Just my heartbeat getting louder in my ears and the blood pressure building behind my eyes. 25 seconds. 30. My vision started to sparkle at the edges. My diaphragm was spasming, trying to force air in. At 34 seconds, I broke. I gasped, huge, involuntary, my whole chest heaving. And from inside the wall, at the exact same instant, I heard it gasp too. The same volume, the same desperate, ragged pull, like we'd surfaced from the same water. Then it settled. In, out. In, out. Slow and steady. And my lungs followed. I couldn't override it. I couldn't even outlast it. Whatever was breathing on the other side of that wall had matched me so completely that even my panic was synchronized. I went to Mrs. Calloway's door. It was 1 a.m. I pounded on it. She opened it in a bathrobe, and for the first time since I'd met her, she didn't smile. She looked at me, and her face did something I wasn't expecting. It crumpled. Not with surprise, with grief. Like she'd been waiting for this knock for a very long time, and had hoped it wouldn't come. "You found the holes," she said. "There's something in the wall. There's something living in the wall." She stared at me for a long moment. Then she said very quietly, "I know." "How long?" "It was here before me. It'll be here after." "We have to call someone. The police, the fire department, anyone." "Maya," her voice cracked. "I called everyone. 12 years ago. They opened up the wall. They found insulation, cobwebs, nothing. They sealed it back up and charged me for the repair. And that night, it drilled 3 new holes." She reached out and took my hand. Her grip was gentle. Her pulse was in her fingertips, and it was beating at the exact same rate as mine. "You should move," she said. "Right now, tonight, before it learns you all the way." "What do you mean, learns me?" "It watches. That's what it does. It watches until it knows your rhythm, and then it breathes with you, sleeps when you sleep, moves when you move. And once it's matched you, you can't unmatch. I've tried. For 23 years, I've tried." She stepped back into her apartment. Her eyes were wet. "Go, please." She closed the door. I went back to my side. I grabbed the bag. It was still by the door, still packed from the night I couldn't remember lying down. I slung it over my shoulder. I put my hand on the doorknob. I turned it. The door opened. Night air hit my face. Cool, clean, smelling like rain and asphalt and the world outside this building. My car was 15 feet away. The engine would start, and I would drive, and this would be over. I stood in the doorway. I didn't move. Not because I was thinking, not because I was scared. My legs just didn't step forward, like the signal from my brain to my muscles had been rerouted, like something between the intention and the action had been gently, carefully disconnected. From behind me, from inside the wall, deep in the guts of the building, I heard a long, slow exhale. And I felt my lungs empty. Not all at once, slowly. The way you breathe out when you're falling asleep. When your body stops being yours and becomes something the dark operates. I was standing in the open doorway, and the night was right there, and my car was right there, and my lungs were breathing on someone else's schedule. And the worst part, the part I can't stop thinking about, the part that wakes me up at 3:15 every morning now, 20 seconds after something else wakes up first, is that it didn't feel wrong. It felt like being held. The door was open. My bag was on my shoulder. My lungs breathed in when the wall breathed in. I closed the door. I'm still here. It's been 4 months. Mrs. Calloway and I eat at the same time now. We sleep at the same time. We breathe at the same rate. I can feel it through the wall. Not her, not the thing, just the rhythm, the schedule, the routine. Last week, Pruitt called. He said a new tenant is moving into the unit upstairs. A girl, early 20s. She asked if the building was quiet. He told her she'd never hear a peep. I should have said something. I should have called her, warned her, told her to find another building, any building. But I was sitting on the couch, and Mrs. Calloway was sitting on hers, and the wall was breathing between us, and my mouth wouldn't open. Because the routine says I don't talk at 6 p.m. At 6 p.m., I sit. At 6:15, I eat. At 10:47, I sleep. The routine is all there is now. And it's so quiet here.